Yeah. How should we start?
That's a good question. Well, first of all, some of the people who would be watching this might know us,
Mm-hmm.
some don't. The reason that I decided to make this video
Mm-hmm.
is that I thought this could be a really good way to start the channel in the first place, which is basically a way to express myself without having to talk to people who may not be as interested in the topics that I talk about as I am.
Mm-hmm.
And for you, I was gonna go for like just making videos and just ranting in front of the camera, but then I decided that it would be much better from my experiences that I find it much easier and smoother to have a conversation than to just talk to a camera or to write things down. And I chose to do it with you since of our like history together for a year now. We've been having lots of calls, and some of them even like I remember at first we had like calls for like 6 hours or something like that, and
Mm-hmm.
it was crazy, but it was still smooth. We have the similar interest. We don't fully agree in everything, which is pretty normal. But regardless, the way we conversate is very well and very smooth. And the second reason I chose to have this with you is because talking and sharing and discussing stuff and all of these things, we have this as a common trait between us. And recently I've been thinking about why do I even talk in the first place? Why do I not just keep whatever experiences or realizations or thoughts or whatever you want to call them to myself? um, which like I don't know, which led me to like just remember some stuff from the past. Well, some of them like very past, like I'm talking childhood. Some of them are like in my teenage years and so forth. And it seemed that like there was some kind of a pattern. Um, like maybe the stuff that I share are different, but there's like for example when I was a kid I used to have this thing where I share whether toys or actual games or whatever with whoever comes to my place or something like that, and I never felt that it's like some kind of like a good deed that I'm doing. It never really mattered. um I thought at first maybe because I'm not much of a materialistic kind of person who just is so attached to whatever things he collects. But then I noticed that it's not just the material stuff, it's not just things, it's also just experiences. And I think you can relate with me when I say like this some sort of like temptation, and I don't think it's just the both of us. Maybe like lots of people can have this because I've noticed that people really try to help all the time. You know, usually it's out of good place, like good intentions, but they're placed wrong kind of thing. But they always try to just give advice. In a way, like when I try to boil it down, you can see that they're trying to, from their own experiences, to try to see, okay, you're going through something that is similar that I've went through before.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore, because I care about you to a certain extent, let me give you a shortcut. Let me just cut through the bullshit and just get you through it without having to go through all the trouble that I went through
Mm-hmm.
myself. So I've been noticing that I've been doing this a lot with different ways. I'm on multiple servers on Discord, for example. One of them is Hype server,
Mm-hmm.
and it brought my attention that I've been sharing so many content over there, like almost every video or quote or page that I read that I find interesting, that I find useful. I just copy it and then I paste it in there. And I know quite well that no one, like, I don't want to say no one really, but almost no one really reads any of these things, look into them.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the stuff, maybe because different interests, they're not really interested in these things. Some of them are too long, too complicated, too deep, and people usually don't like these things. Like if you were to give them some kind of video, like a 4-minute video, you know, how to be emotionally mature or something like that, yeah, there is a high chance that someone will check this out. But then if you go like sharing a video that's like an hour or more long, this is a very less chance that someone would bother, and the person who would be really interested in this, which is not the case in Hype server, for example. The people in there are far from being interested in such things,
Mm.
and yet I keep on posting them. I keep on uploading stuff in there, like daily. And I thought to myself, why am I doing this?
Mhm. Mhm.
It's not just the concept of talking in itself, but it's more of sharing in general. Whether which type of sharing doesn't matter, but it's just like the concept of sharing is so dense as a trait in me, and
Yeah.
I don't fully understand why.
Yeah.
What about you?
So, okay, just for the record, we already started, or are you still saying how we will make the video? Or
Yeah,
yeah. All right,
we're
sure.
basically doing both at the same time. Yeah.
All right. I mean, when you talked about it, I had to think of different things. Like, for example, sharing videos in a Discord server where there's probably not many people who would be even interested. It's like, on one side, I agree that there's like this innate need to share with others and to help others also. For example, if
Yeah.
I watch a video that is really useful to me and I think it has real value, then something in me wants to just bring it out and share it so
Yeah.
that it can help someone else, right?
Hmm.
But another part of it is maybe um, just that I want to put something of myself out there, you know?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm not sure if it's only about helping others. It might also be something about like um, just, how should I say, being seen or someone connecting with you through something.
Recognition.
Recognition, maybe. Like also the same reason for like if you share music, like a part of it is maybe that you want others to enjoy the music, but a part of it, at least for me sometimes, is that I want someone to like the same music that I like, you know,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. Yeah.
like to feel connected to that person,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
a part of me shares things to feel connected to other people,
Yeah.
right? Because if you're like watching your own stuff, you're listening to your own stuff and everything, um you and no one else does the same things, you feel kind of like an island, you feel by yourself, you feel alone kind of, right? So
Yeah.
so
I think
I
so.
don't know. It's an interesting aspect. I think sharing also has to do with the need or the wish to connect with others. Simply the
Mm.
wish to connect with others. I mean,
I
sharing
mean,
comes in many forms. Like if you walk on a road and there's a neighbor, right? And he just like I had that actually happen just before the talk. I went for a quick walk, and there was a guy I hadn't really talked to before, and he just looked at me when I was walking, and I live in a small village, so people are like more likely to talk to each other. And
yeah.
then he just said like, "Oh, you're taking a walk, huh? It's difficult to just sit inside all of the time, right? Because of Corona, because of the lockdown." Um,
Hmm.
and I'm a bit introverted, but I just said, yeah, getting some fresh air and
Yeah.
yeah. But for me, like I think for me, I often don't try to talk to like people on a surface level. I like to go deep, but for others, it's way more enjoyable often to just have small talk because it's just a
Yeah.
way of connecting, right? So they're
Yeah.
sharing some of their energy, some of their whatever, with you, and
Hmm.
you're sharing some wisdom, and there's some kind of connection taking place. So I think there's like different layers to this. This is like a surface layer, like how are you doing? Hey, I'm doing good. All right, nice, thanks, bye. Like that's a simple way of sharing something. But then sharing like deep conversations and deep topics or deep emotions, that's a different layer of sharing. But I think fundamentally they're not too different, like it's about
Well,
connecting somehow.
small talk and deep talk or big talk, I think they have like different motives that
Mm,
make people do this or that. Like for small talk, I think I don't recall who said this, but it's some kind of like hey, are you here like me kind of thing, like reassuring one another, like hey,
mm,
let's make some noise, let's just
mm,
because like people. like you know, like how the sense of self, um without going too deep into this, but like basically, I'm an entity and I'm here and you're sitting there. This is the common sense of self, right?
Mm-hmm.
And for that, most people don't really identify with their bodies, but they feel like they're sitting somewhere behind the eyes looking at the thing. I'm not sure why exactly is it the eyes, why not like the nose, why not like this, but maybe the eye is somewhat like the most important sense for most people, kind of thing. So most people feel like they're inside their heads riding an avatar and walking around. So when they where if you were to put one of those people, like the average kind of person, in some isolation, even for like an hour or so, what they feel is that it's just them, it's just me in here and I'm looking at everything else. It's just me versus other, kind of thing. So they usually feel like I don't know, like some kind of a need to break the silence,
Mm-hmm.
the sense of isolation and separation. That they really want to get rid of this me versus other kind of what do you call it? The way of perceiving the world, kind of thing. They want to break it, but they break it through other things. Like talking, making some noise, basically. You know, like I don't know, just chatting. Like I used to encounter this a lot, where I'm waiting for the bus or something like that, and it's a really hot day, and like everyone is sweating, and then there's a guy next to me, and then out of no fucking where, he just goes like, "It's pretty hot today." Like, yeah, like I mean, it's like, you know, the first like thought that comes to my head, like I just look at the guy like, what do you want? Like, what are you trying to say? Like, I'm sweating just like you don't really need to say this. So when you
Mm-hmm.
think about it logically, it doesn't make any sense. It's pointless. You just like, I don't know, you can't keep your shit together and stay silent for a couple of moments. But when you try to be more compassionate and understanding of it, he's just trying to end the silence, because he's standing there waiting, and waiting basically gets you bored, and then you start noticing that it's just me there and there's others. So he wants to end this thing, and let's just like say something, let's just break the silence, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So this is like, I don't know, this is how I see the small talk. Why do people do it? Mainly, and it's like, if you want to boil it down to one word, it would be distraction.
Distraction.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, just like, whether like when we were preparing for this talk, not like as a script, but like when we were discussing what we're going to talk about in a vague kind of structure, you mentioned something last night when you said that those families who keep the TV on
Mm-hmm.
just for the fuck of it, even if no one is listening, they just keep it on, you know, just, I don't know, it's just making some noise in the place. Because, like, in a way, it is a distraction from you, from being locked in inside your head or something like that. But deep talk is, or big talk kind of stuff is different for me, the way I see it. Like, it mostly, and I think we talked about this, we definitely did before. It mostly is because, like, so I have an opinion on how I see things in general, or a specific thing, doesn't matter. And when I go to try to share my opinion with someone, in a way, I'm trying to influence them, even if it's just low key trying to influence them. You know, it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't have to be some aggressive stuff, and it doesn't have to get heated and all of these things. But once you actually say an opinion, that just simply indicates that you want to influence this person one way or another. You want them to carry or have the same opinion that you have. Because, and this is the part where I think you kind of disagreed with me on, because then it gives them like some kind of sense of security. So it's not just me, you know, they can't be all wrong mentality, kind of thing, you know, which is most people, how most people go, you know, they go into some I don't know, some office or something like that to finish some papers that you need. And then you go in, and this happened to me before. Went in and I saw a really long line of people just standing in front of one window, and there's a window right next to it, and there's a lady in it, and there's no one standing in there. So obviously you're gonna just go stand here, but I just wanted to make sure that this line is the line that I should stand in. I
Mm-hmm.
went to the second window and I was like, hey, I wanted to get these things done, where do I go? She said, just give me your papers and I'm gonna sign them for you.
Yeah.
So what about these people? Well, they're doing the same thing. It's just like they didn't bother. Like obviously they would have. This is how, like, they don't think it through, but it's just like some kind of like a fast thought that comes in to their heads. Like you don't need to think when I ask you what's your name. So it's kind of as quick as this. So they go in and they see a bunch of people stand here and no one is standing there, so I'm just gonna go stand here. Otherwise, if this window were to do the job that I want, they would have stood there, kind of thing. So sharing what do you call this sharing opinions and stuff like that in a way is trying to influence, um, to just have a sense of security that it's not just me anymore, validation
I'm not
and
sure. Like I get that angle, and I think partially it's true, but I think
yeah,
there's something deeper behind it even, you know? I
yeah,
think that's
like
not
what?
the deeper layer in a sense.
How
Because
so?
um let's say for example, if you look at people we would consider very evolved human beings, you know, like enlightened
Yeah,
people or whatnot.
yeah,
They often don't even have much of a sense of self, or their sense of self is more universal. It isn't locked into like being just a human being. You know, it's like they understand that they're more than just this human mind or brain, um, and they still share, right? They still put energy out there. They still talk to people. Um, and for
mm,
me, I don't think it comes from a place of wanting to um, convince someone else due to a lack of, like, due to some kind of insecurity, right? Because you're saying basically that there's some insecurity within ourselves, some emptiness within ourselves that we want to fill through putting our opinion and perspective out there and hoping that someone else will take on the same perspective. Or
external validation, yeah,
right, so you're saying that the reason for sharing is
mostly.
external validation.
Mostly, yeah,
Yeah,
mostly. I
but
don't
I
know
think
about the people you're talking about. Um, I'm not too sure about that.
yeah,
Like, I don't
but
know what their
because
motives is
but I
exactly.
think that even like let's say most people, let's say partially it's their motive to convince others due to some kind of insecurity. Let's say that's the case, right? But I think
Okay.
then that would only make up a percentage of the motive for why they say these
Mm,
things. I think there's a
mm,
deeper layer, a deeper reason why people in general, be it enlightened people, be it you, be it whoever, you know, share things and share opinions and perspectives. I think there's a deeper, like, fundamental drive and nature to it, right?
mm.
So,
I think I see what you're saying.
mm,
Like, okay, before I go, let me clarify, like, and just make sure that I understood you. That deeper aspect of it, is it just applied in those enlightened beings or
no,
human
it's
beings?
everybody. It's
It's
universal.
everybody. That it's just there's some kind of like an instinct or like a drive to share things.
Yeah.
Well, I think I do agree with this because, like, I don't know, when you think about it, um you don't just like pass genes and traits and like characteristics and all of that. You also pass ideas, and like um that's where like the creativity part comes in. It's just like you take one coat and then you take another, and it goes inside your head, and some way or another you produce a third one out of those two, kind of thing. So, and that's when the like the evolve the what do you call it, the evolution of the human psyche may be like in that kind of like scenario, kind of thing, where
Mhm.
ideas are being shared and just passed on through generations, and through that um, passing of ideas they get modified each time. And then when like, so like, I don't know, there was this like a very simplistic representation of this thought or this idea is basically, there was this video where there was a line of people, and each one is just looking at the back of the other, and some guy just went to the first person in the line, which is like at the back, and he went to this person and he did this, which like represents some kind of like a motorcycle, right?
Mm,
And he asked this person to do it to the front and so on. And
mm,
then there is some other guy from the other side of the line just with the camera just showing you how the representation of the motorcycle is being changed. So this person does it to the other person, and then it's still kind of a motorcycle because you know how it all started. But at the very end, it was a dance. At the very
mm.
end of the line, you're talking 20 people maximum. It was a dance. And then like, you know, that's some sort of like how things change. It doesn't necessarily change to the best. It doesn't like, you can't really say that a motorcycle is better than a dance. Two different things. But there has been change through this kind of what do you call it, cycle, or a bunch of
Yeah,
people passing ideas.
yeah.
So yeah, I think that that's true as well. Maybe that's
I mean, if we want to, because we like we say, we're always carrying around a shovel to
yeah,
dig deep. So
yeah,
I can already go there, but
yeah,
I think that it has to do with, because just to clarify for any viewers, because when we're not sure who's watching,
yeah,
I mean, I can speak for myself that I have a spiritual or metaphysical worldview, right?
yeah,
So I see reality as consciousness or mind, um,
yeah,
and I see that individual humans in reality don't exist, in the sense that in truth we are all the same being, right? We're all
yeah,
kind of one being that is playing a game, right? Playing the
yeah,
game of creation, right?
yeah,
We have millions of animals, human beings, they're all having a unique perspective that is completely unique. There's no other being that has the same perspective, and it's
yeah,
experiencing, like this one being is experiencing all these different realities, right, through the
yeah,
lens of all these different people.
yeah,
And the game we're playing is creation. So what is creation, right? So if I look at a human being, to me a human being is a miniature creator or a miniature god, right?
yeah.
So
Mm,
creation is in my opinion, um energy projected outward, in a sense, outward,
yeah,
quote unquote. But
yeah,
right, so if you talk, if you you know, the way your face is making different expressions, what is coming out of your mouth, the ideas that you're transmitting, all
yeah,
of these things, I would look at it as energy, right? it's
yeah,
it's it's communication on different levels through some kind of energy, some kind of impression. um and this is the creation process, right? Much
yeah,
like the earth is creating, um and the sun together, you know, creating
yeah,
life on earth, right? And there's different animals, there's different plants, everything that comes out of the earth, right?
yeah,
um so the earth is expressing something, right? it's it's
mm-hmm,
it's projecting an energy, and it's expressing something and creating something. So
yeah,
everything in a sense is a miniature creator,
yeah,
um that is
mm-hmm,
creating something.
yeah,
And so if we look at talking, it's the same principle, right? So
mm-hmm,
if we were just sitting in our room our whole life, right, not talking to anybody, just sitting
yeah,
there, um it would be a limited way of creating. Like
yeah,
maybe we would, I don't know, paint something on the floor, or we would think about stuff, which is also a way of creating, because to me thoughts are not like the thing that only like exists in your brain. To me it's something that it's energy that you put out as well, whether you talk vocally now or you think something. To me that energy also on some level just goes out there into the
yeah,
universe, or you know. So
mm-hmm,
it's also just creating, it's putting something out there.
yeah.
So sharing is
I mean,
part of
it's
that
similar
fundamental
to.
creation process, you know.
Is it similar to? Do you think it would be similar to that notion of leaving something behind? You know, kind of thing,
Yeah,
like
I mean,
building a temple, or I don't know, like the pyramids, or whether like, you know, like it's not like, I know there's a lot more to do more with the pyramids and all of these things, that they weren't just built for amusement and all of that. There are some theories about this, but like generally speaking, like when someone makes a statue, or even like there's this saying in the Arab world that goes like, I want to have a child that carry my name, kind of thing. You
Mm,
know, I want to leave something behind that just um what do you call this, continues on with the game of creation, or all of that from that perspective. You know, it feels very similar, like whether like it's talking, whether it's actual reproduction, like sexual, and then having babies, and that baby you bring him up or her up and so forth. It seems like this, you know. But like aside from this, like what I'm really trying to tackle is why the temptation to share with people who are not interested in what you share, basically. You know, like this, for example, as I was talking to you earlier, is going to have specific kind of views. Like the person who would be watching up till this second is someone who's genuinely interested what we want to say, what the both of us want to say.
mhm.
But some of them will be just someone who's bored and he sees a link and, hey guys, check what we just did, and he's just like, okay, let me see what these guys want to say, and then he's just gonna keep on skipping all over the video and just like kind of like grasping what they're really talking about, how the conversation is going. Is it getting heated? Are they yelling at each other? No, nothing too exciting, I'm leaving, kind of thing. So I
Yeah,
thought of the channel is gonna be more of, and instead of randomly just approaching someone, whether online or not, and triggering some kind of like those kind of talks that both of us enjoy talking about, we're just gonna put the content somewhere. Um, what do you call it? Somewhere like online, where the person who's gonna reach there is basically, say, like if you put some like tags on the video, right?
mhm,
And the tags is just like, say for example, just a random example, mm, atheism, for example, right?
mm,
So someone who's interested in that philosophy, or that way of living, for example, is going to be like, go to the search on YouTube, and he's going to type like, what is atheism, right? So this person is already having the intention, having the interest to listen to something that talks about this. So then when he gets the video, he's not gonna, or she's not gonna be like, okay, that's something boring or something like that, other than when you willingly go talk to someone just because you want to talk, you know.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Mm.
so okay, so the question changed a bit from why do I
Yeah.
talk or why do we share
Yeah.
something, right?
Yeah.
To why would one share things with people who one thinks they probably wouldn't care or wouldn't
Yeah.
listen to it or wouldn't be
Yeah.
interested, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, we could investigate that through looking at your psyche, for example, when you're doing
Mm-hmm.
something like this. Like,
Yeah.
what do you feel when you do that? Um, I think I think because I've done the same, most likely. Like, I think when I do this, I want to. It's again, I want to impact people, right? Because just
Yeah.
because someone may not be interested, it doesn't mean I can't still somehow impact them.
No, you will, but it doesn't necessarily have to be in the way you intended it to be. It can be
Yeah.
the other way around. Like you might be a person, like Jehovah's Witnesses are mostly like hated or resented for trying to spread their God's word and all of that. And usually their intention might be, okay, I want you guys to experience how good it feels to be following this religion and how much sense it makes to follow it and all of that. And this is actually the truth and so forth. So out of this, from a good kind of place, they approach your door and then they want to talk to you about this. They want to share the experience they're having, right? Spread the goodness of it or
Hmm.
whatever. But it can backfire, you
Yeah.
know, and that's usually what's commonly known about them, is that it backfires. So instead of pulling or attracting someone to what you want them to experience, you make them repel it, No, don't
Yeah.
try to convince me of something. Don't talk to me into something, kind of thing.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned a good point there, which is they feel like they're gaining value from their religion or their perspective or
Yeah.
worldview, right? And they wish that value they wish for that value to reach others as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they think or they feel, and maybe they are somehow doing a good thing by impacting other people or trying to share their
Yeah.
worldview with them, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, because you said before that it comes from a place of insecurity, or it can come from a place of insecurity, but I think that oftentimes it also comes from a place of love, right? And love not in the superficial sense, but in the deeper, well, metaphysical sense, or sense of um, seeing others as part of yourself, right?
Yeah.
And like, and this kind of connects to this, but I also thought of this recently a bit, that when you see an animal getting killed, right, like in factory farms, or when you see um, maybe someone destroy a tree, it depends on your level of empathy and what kind of personality you have. But some people, they would feel bad if they saw someone cut down a tree,
Yeah.
or if someone kills an insect, or if someone slaps a child in front of you, right? Like you
Yeah.
would feel something, right? And why do you feel something? And I think it's because we innately have this understanding on some level, to some degree, that we are part of everything, right? So if someone is hurt, or if we see something in our like field of vision where there's disharmony and there's someone getting hurt or something, we know somewhere deep down that it's a part of us that is being hurt as well, I feel. So um
Hmm.
I lost my train of thought. How did I want to connect that to the thing before? um
You were talking about when wait, what was it? Sharing? I don't know, man. Just keep on going. I don't know. Yeah.
um
But yeah, but like I basically get what you're saying, but like you were basically saying that
mm.
when someone tries to convince, it's out of love or something like that because
Yeah,
they
yeah,
think
yeah,
it's
right. We see others as part of ourselves. So
yeah.
let's say a Jehovah's Witness, right? He on some level sees other human beings as part of themselves. Like let's say I'm a Jehovah's Witness, and I feel that my religion is something really good, right? And I can help people. It has a lot of value. It has helped me so much. So I want to share that with others. I want others to feel that benefit, to get that benefit. I see the human race as somehow a part of me. I want to help it, right?
Hmm.
So that's why
But
I would
I
go
don't
out
think
and share those things, because I
maybe
hope that it will impact them positively.
maybe there is truth in this, and maybe that it's fundamentally some kind of a drive or something like that. But I highly doubt that they're actually this is how they think of it or how they feel about it. Mostly the case that I would think it is that I see you struggling so much, and I see what I have can take lots of suffering from your life. It can make things much better. I mean, it's basically what, like, say, for example, someone like Sam Harris, when this person used to be, and still is, but I think, I'm not too sure, but I think he's more compassionate and less aggressive, or doesn't feel like so much anger towards religion, but he became more understanding. But back then he used to be just like all about criticizing religion, what they used to do and so forth. And then he started looking into spirituality, and when he did, and he saw the impact it had on him without needing to actually believe in anything or worship anyone, he wanted to share this value because he thought it can remove a lot of suffering from a lot of people,
But
which
isn't
is
that
very
the same
similar.
thing? Like
Yeah,
I'm
exactly.
Yeah. So but why are you saying that they don't feel that way? because
It's
that's
not because they feel like you're part of me or something like that, and we're all
no,
one thing.
but the point is, why do they want to help you feel better? You get what I'm alluding
Yeah,
to?
yeah,
I'm not saying they consciously know that
exactly. That's
they
my
are
point.
part
Yeah,
of everything or
yeah.
whatever. I'm just saying that like
Some kind of a drive
that
that they're
that is
not
the
aware of.
fundament, I believe, the fundamental reason why people want to help anyone, because
Yeah,
there's no reason why you would have to share, like try to like share your well-being with others or help other people feel good as well. Like,
yeah.
like
I mean, there
maybe
are
you
other
could,
reasons like money and so forth.
yeah, I mean, you could come up with some evolutionary theories and reasons,
Yeah,
like if you believe in how do you say, like the Darwinian, was it the Darwinian
yeah,
evolution process,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Like those who survive are those who share or something like that. You could come up with something like that, but I think it's a limited understanding of how reality and evolution works. Um, but yeah, I do think that subconsciously that's the reason why anyone wants to share their belief, right?
yeah, yeah. I don't really disagree with this. I think there might be truth in it. But like at least that's not what they're um
What they
aware of.
consciously
That's
know,
not. It's
what
not.
they're,
Yeah, it's not in their consciousness. They're
yeah,
just doing this because like, hey man, like whether like someone who writes a book, that person, yeah, he has some value that he wants to spread, maybe yes, and but it can also it has lots of other motivations like money or fame or recognition, appreciation, and so forth. So it doesn't necessarily have to be love with others. It can be also love for oneself, selfish love as well. They can be both of them. They can exist simultaneously in the
yeah,
same act. That's what
yeah,
I'm
for
saying.
sure. And I also think that ultimately love for yourself is how should I say, it it's the same as love for others, or it's not the same, but like if you are everything, if you are one with everything, then like loving everything includes loving yourself, right? So I
Yeah,
think that it's very important to love yourself and to do things for yourself, right?
but it
um
depends on if you actually like, because some people be like, okay, all is one and all of that, but it's just on an intellectual level. So they can only behave in that way when they're under some kind of a substance, or if they're constantly reminding themselves intellectually that all is one kind of thing. So it's just there's a difference between not being able to differentiate between this and your body or something like that as a way of perceiving, and intellectually saying like I'm the bottle as well, not just this body kind of thing,
yeah,
which makes a big difference because then you're not gonna act. It's like a belief. It's just it's gonna
yeah,
drop. It's an act. It's not really embodied into you in a
yeah, yeah,
sense.
it's not
Yeah,
embodied, yeah.
yeah,
um I also think that, there's people who are polarized towards service to self, in the sense of they, for example, would feel very comfortable with hurting someone else so they can get something, right?
yeah,
Like we see it in different fields all the time, like, I don't know, politics or like economy or whatever, right? So the competitive kind of nature, right? Like I heard someone else, I get something, that's good because I gotta take care of myself, right? Such
yeah,
people are usually lower in empathy, right? Higher in psychopathy.
yeah,
um and they, I think, see themselves as like subconsciously, not consciously, but subconsciously, they feel less connected to everything else, whereas
mm,
highly empathic people subconsciously, I think, they feel more connected to everything else. That's
yeah,
why if someone, I don't know, hurts a fly in front of them or kills a fly, they might be like, if they're really like empathic, they might be like,
yeah,
oh my god, you killed that
yeah,
fly.
yeah, yeah.
um
It hits them.
yeah,
Yeah, like it's like that story that Sadhguru was telling once about some. guy from like America or something like that had a camel, and he went for Libya. He went to Libya for a camel race, and when he arrived there with his camel, waiting for the race to start, and he looked around at the other camels, all of them were so huge and so tall and all of that, and his camel was very small compared to them. And then he looked at the guy right next to him, and he was like, "How come your camel is much bigger than my camel?" And he said, "That's simple. You just need to castrate it, and then it's gonna get bigger." So then he said, wouldn't it hurt? And he said, "Of course not. Let me show you." And then the guy, the Libyan guy, he just brought two bricks and he smashed the camel's balls right in front of the guy. The camel went screaming and just fucking, what do you call it? Just all over the place, it's just in pain and suffering.
Mm.
And then the guy said, "You said it's not going to hurt." He said, "Yeah, it won't hurt unless you had your thumb between the two bricks, because that's basically it. If it touches you, then yeah, then it's painful, it's bad.
Mm.
But if not, then it's not painful, because you can't really, like, if I were to say, for example, like, do this, you can somehow be like, mm, I kind of
Mm.
can see this, like, relate to it in some sense, but you don't actually feel it, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah, yeah.
So it's more of like, what do you call it, like, I doubt that those people, like, who, like, the example is the butterfly and that person, I doubt that that person actually feels the pain that this butterfly felt, like, actually feels it, perceive it. But maybe that person is just too life sensitive in general, not just like humane, but like life sensitive. Like, this person might be aware that even a butterfly can have feelings and so forth. So no, this is wrong. This is morally wrong. But
Yeah,
it
I
could be.
mean,
I
it
don't know.
depends on the people, and I think there are people who have that kind of empathy where they feel a portion of what the other person is feeling, or
Totally
they. It's difficult to say whether they actually feel a portion of what they are feeling,
rejected.
or whether they can accurately know what the other person is feeling and then generate that feeling within themselves.
Yeah,
Like, that's a
yeah,
complicated thing, right? But like,
yeah,
for example, I'm very empathic in the sense that I'm very attuned to how others feel, and
yeah,
it impacts me, it impacts how I feel. Like, if someone feels bad around me, it can easily make me feel similar to how they're feeling.
yeah,
So and it can be quite difficult when you're not trained and when you're not good at control, like mastering your own like when you don't have high mastery in your own emotional states, like choosing your own emotional states, then having people around with all kinds of emotional states can be very difficult to handle, because they're just impacting you all the time so
yeah.
much, and you're just like feeling this way and that way and that way, and you can't really center yourself and choose how you want to feel. um
Be an individual, basically. Yeah,
yeah, so that,
yeah,
I mean, and people who are high in psychopathy, and they often can do jobs and do things where people around them could be in extreme pain and whatnot, and
yeah.
they don't care, like it doesn't affect them, right?
Mm,
Like, if you to work at a like, what was that, concentration camp, right, in Nazi
mm.
Germany or whatever, you would have to be very high on psychopathy, right? You'd have to be a psychopath or something like that, right?
Well,
Or
why
sociopath.
is that exactly?
Because okay, like, either you can completely dehumanize other people, like a group of people, which is possible, right? Like,
I
if you
mean, like the
dehumanize
concentration camp, what basically goes in there? Yeah.
concentration camp, back then, Jews. Like,
Jews?
Jews, like, I mean,
Yeah,
you know of Nazi Germany, where Hitler, like, that's the
yeah.
official narrative, right, where Hitler like brought Jews, because he
Uh-huh.
didn't like Jews,
Yeah.
and people didn't like Jews, into concentration camps,
Uh-huh.
and made them work and treated them very badly, and
Oh, okay.
killed them
Yeah,
often, like,
yeah,
or worked them to the bone and stuff like that, right? So, like, the
yeah.
worst kind of conditions you can imagine for a human being, right?
Mm-hmm.
Treating them like cattle or worse, right?
Yeah.
So to work at such a
Mhm.
place, even to work at a prison or something, but to work at
Yeah.
such a place, like to be like overlooking them and torturing them and whatnot,
Yeah.
you either have to be dehumanizing them completely. So do you have no, you feel no connection to them. You feel they are completely separate
Really
from you,
separate. Yeah.
right? Like saying like Jews are the devil's incarnate and they deserve hell or something
Mm.
like that, right? If you have that
Yeah.
kind of perspective, you might be able to dehumanize them to the degree where like you feel nothing for them, right? If they get
Mhm.
killed and tortured in front of you, you feel nothing, or you might
Yeah.
even feel pleasure from it, right?
Hmm.
um, or you like either you're kind of empathic but you can dehumanize them, or you are very high on psychopathy, meaning you generally just don't care
You
about
don't really feel
those
it. Yeah.
feelings,
It doesn't
right?
really affect you. Yeah.
Right,
I
so
mean,
it
it's the
just
same with like whether like I don't know, say for example, um, like most people find it easy to say eat chicken, right? And it's because like they just go buy it and it's already killed and all of that mess and then stuff like that. It's already done. You just pay for the chicken ready to be cooked or something like that. But it would be, I think, like maybe not with everyone, of course, but maybe with some people it would be very difficult if you were to be like, okay, here's a knife and here's a live chicken, slit her throat and just like go ahead and cook it. It can be very difficult, and it can reach to a point where they actually, even if they killed it and cooked it, it's going to be very hard on them to put the chicken in their mouth and eat it. And if they did, they might throw up as well. You know, it
mhm,
happened to me when I was young. I saw a cow getting slaughtered for some Muslim, what do you call it? Holiday.
ceremony or okay.
Yeah, holiday. Yeah, it's
Mhm,
called Eid.
mhm,
So in that moment, I was very young, and I actually, some of the blood came all over my face because I was standing really close. It's just like a manly trait that you should experience or something like that. A manly experience that you should
mhm,
go through when you were young or something. So I was brought really near to the cow, and I was seeing the guy slaughtering its neck, and the blood just was all over the place. And that day, after this, what should happen is that they take the meat, they give some of it or most of it, I think, away, and then they keep some for themselves, like the family who bought this cow or something like that. And then, as the usual, like every, I don't know, every time we eat meat or something like that, my mom cooked it, and I liked how she cooks the food. I go and eat it, and I can't. I couldn't put the meat in my mouth, and I didn't eat meat as everyone else in that holiday. So it kind of in a way like when you see it, when you see the process, no. When you're not really seeing it, then yeah, it's easier to do it, kind of thing.
yeah, again, it's a way of not being connected to it, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I
It's
mean,
not really. It's not. I
that's
didn't
kind
really
of the
do it.
thing. It's always a matter of how connected you feel to things. The less
Yeah,
connected you feel to something,
less
the
responsible
less
about
responsible
it.
you feel, right? That's a good
Yeah,
word, right? Less
yeah.
responsible you feel to it. The
Mhm.
more you feel connected to things, the less responsible and you don't
I mean,
really
there
feel.
are some people who eat meat. They're not really vegetarians or vegans, but they can eat meat if they found it dead already or something like that in some forest or something. Like some even go to the extreme, quote unquote extreme, where they basically they don't pick up fruits from a tree. They wait for it to fall down, and it already fell down, already died. It's like cycle is over. So I'm just gonna consume it before it goes ripe or something like that, which is like feels like the most life sensitive kind of people, they can do this because if you really didn't eat it even when it falls down, like let alone the fact that you'll most likely like you're gonna die because there is no survival anymore. It's gonna be eaten anyway by other creatures, you know. So I don't know, like it's good to have a sense of self or ego, as that quote says, just enough to not get hit by a bus, you know? Because if you really had unconditional love and total selflessness, you're not going to care about what goes on to this body because you just like, if a tiger were to attack you, you love it so unconditionally that you're not going to protect yourself
No,
from
I
it.
don't
You're
I
just
don't
going to let it.
agree. I don't agree because because if you like, you are not non-existent either, meaning like it, you see yourself as a part of yourself, just how you see the tiger as a part of yourself, right?
Yes.
So um so you're saying that the love for the tiger would be so great or something, right, that you let the tiger eat you or whatever.
Unconditional love, it would be in that case, but you can also defend yourself and kill the tiger if necessary, and that would also be love, but it would be self-love,
I
you know.
no I think that unconditional, like, how should I say, first of all, unconditional love, you can have that without it meaning you kill the tiger or not kill the tiger. Like, you can love the tiger unconditionally and still kill it. That's one
um
thing, I believe. But the other thing is that, um how should I say, you can, again, like, you can love yourself unconditionally while loving the tiger unconditionally. You can value your own life and you can value the tiger's life, but that doesn't have to necessarily be the factor of whether you kill the tiger or not kill the tiger, or let it eat you or not let it eat you. I think there's something deeper to it, which is like more like a flow of creation, in a sense. Like,
hmm.
um like, you tune into what is what is to the highest good or whatever. Like, I don't know, I like, for most people I think this is mostly irrelevant, because for most people it's like, if a tiger attacks you, you defend yourself, you kill it or whatever. But I think when human beings are highly developed, they can kind of they can kind of feel into what the universe wants to create through them, in a sense.
Well, you're talking about um there's a difference between um conditional love and unconditional love.
Wait, can I need to go to the toilet? I'll be back in a moment.
Okay, let's pause the recording meanwhile.
All right,
Just
all right.
pause it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. So, as I was saying, there is a difference between two things: unconditional love and conditional love. Conditional love can be branched into two types of love. Conditional love is basically selfish love, right? But it can be represented in two types of ways: the feminine, the gentle kind of way, and the radical, harsh, masculine kind of way. So, for example, a gentle way is commonly known, like I love you, being nice to people, and so forth, and which can also be selfish love, in a way. But there's the masculine and the harsh side of it, which can be when a tiger attacks you, you love yourself. This whether you're aware of these metaphysical or spiritual concepts and all of these things or not, you love yourself, so you can, in a way, out of this love for yourself, you can kill the tiger. Like, for example, there's this movie by Will Smith, I Am Legend, and there's this scene where his dog, his only companion, got infected or bitten by a zombie or something like that, and it was changing into a zombie, and it's gonna kill Will Smith himself. And because of, he loves his dog so much, but it's still selfish love, it's still conditional love. Once those conditions changed, that he started to become a zombie and then he's a real threat to him, then he had to kill it. And he even, like, when he was like choking the dog and to death, he was looking the other way around because he still have the gentle kind of love towards his dog, but both of them just stem from the conditional love. So in that scene, there was the gentle and the harsh kind of love at the same time. He was crying because he has the gentle love towards his dog for all the good conditioned love he had for him in the past. And there's the harsh one where he wants to survive himself and he can't let the dog live anymore because it's going to kill him. So he had to kill it before it fully transforms. But then on the other side of the spectrum, there is the unconditional love, which is, I can't really say that it's what do you call this? It's something that cannot be a permanent state of consciousness to anyone. It can be, certainly can be permanent, but if it were to be permanent, that's basically like, if we're gonna talk spiritually or metaphysically, and if this whole thing is just Leela, the act, or the play, or all of this, the show, is once you reach to a permanent unconditional love state, you're in a way giving the show away, the show of this idea that is being expressed in the universe, which is, say, logic, or Marvin, or something like that. Because then you love the tiger so unconditionally that it doesn't matter if it's gonna kill you and end your life or not. It's gonna feed on you, it's gonna survive on you, and you love it, and you're aware to a very high extent, if it were to kill this, you don't really die, you just become the tiger in a way. You get it?
I
So you
think
don't really defend yourself
I
in that case.
think that that feeling unconditional love for everything as a sort of substratum of experience, which is, I think, that what some or many enlightened individuals feel, which is, I have to say, I think there's different degrees of unconditional love or love, which sounds funny, but like, I think like there's different, because love is in metaphysics, it's a deep concept. It's like the levels of love that can be experienced are enormous, right? But so let's say we have an enlightened individual, a very developed enlightened individual, and he knows that he is everything, right, on a deeper level of himself, on an experiential level, and he can feel this to some degree permanently, right? Like it's taking up a portion of his awareness, that he is everything, right? And through that, he is able to love everything unconditionally to a certain degree, right? So if he sees a tiger, if he sees whatever, he loves it all, right? He loves it all. That's it, right? But I don't think that loving everything unconditionally has to mean that you don't play the game. Meaning, if the tiger now comes at you and you love it unconditionally, it doesn't have to mean that you don't kill the tiger.
Well, the
Or
thing is that when you stop there, and then you go, it doesn't have to mean, this pause in between is the condition. You're stating the condition, you know? It can be, you can love everything, and you can fully realize that you are all of those things,
Mhm.
and not just the body that you're experiencing. But it can be, your love towards them, it can be both feminine, gentle, and harsh, masculine kind of love. You know, you can love someone, like give them whatever they need and help them and give them all the support that they need, which is basically the kind of gentle love. And there's the harsh love where you actually kill it. It's because you don't want to give the show away, you want to experience the character that you are more, you want to live more. So for that, you want to survive. Basically, unconditional love
No, I
doesn't
think
really
I think I
involve
think I
survival
think
in it.
it's just a matter of playing the game of creation. Like, essentially, look, if you zoom out, right? If you zoom out enough, there is no there's nothing wrong with the tiger, the tiger, the tiger wanting to kill you, or you wanting to kill
Yeah,
the
there's
tiger,
nothing
or
wrong with that.
there's nothing wrong with it. It's just stuff
Love.
happening, right? It's just
Yeah, it's just love.
creation, right? So,
Yeah.
um, but like, how should I say? Like, I don't find that there's a condition. Like, you don't have to give up your unconditional love to play with creation, because I think there's a difference between preference and unconditional love. Like this is difficult to explain, but there's different layers, right? So like, if you're an enlightened person, you have some layer where you love everything unconditionally, but it doesn't mean that you have layers where you don't have preference as a creator, because
Then it's not
preference.
really the embodiment of, you're gonna be, you have, like, the case you're talking about is basically when you have you've had firsthand experiences of being in a state of unconditional love, even if it's just for a second. You've still have experienced it, and it's still just as real. But it's what I'm talking about is the embodiment, to be the embodiment or representation of an unconditional love. You're not going to survive. Survival is basically based upon fear, upon desire to live longer or something like that. It's
I
still
don't
love,
think so. I think it's just
still
a
love.
creation. I think it's just a creation process. Like um
Yeah, it is. Like,
like
there's nothing wrong with it. I'm not
when
saying
you
it's wrong.
when you when you draw a painting,
Hmm.
right? And you draw a line to the left instead of the right, right?
Okay.
Um do you feel that in that moment you can't unconditionally love both, like the line you drew to the left and love the line you didn't draw to the right? um like, how should I say, like, preference and choice and creation, right, doesn't have to mean that your love for anything is limited or conditional. Like preference and
Preference
love.
means just indicates condition. I prefer this, and this, if it were to change, I would not prefer it anymore. So if the conditions of this were to change, it's not my preference anymore. Why did I choose Marvin to have this conversation with and not someone else? Because I prefer Marvin than someone else. If Marvin were to change in a way, then this preference is just going to drop.
Preference but not love. This is the thing, you're equating preference to love, but I'm drawing a distinction. So I'm saying that like someone who's developed enough, like the the line to the left and the line to the right, he loves both the same fundamentally, but he can still express something, like he can still express a preference, a unique perspective, a unique because that's all that creation is about to me. Create, like, you have infinite potential, right? You have infinite potential, and then you have the creator choosing things from this infinite potential and somehow putting it together to create something, right? That looks like something, right? So every human being is doing this. They're picking and choosing from infinite potential, putting it together to create in a reality, to create an
Yes, but
experience.
that's still conditional love. It can, some of it can be masculine, harsh kind of love, which is like the case, like you have bacteria all over the inside of your body, but you and them kind of like on good terms, you survive together. Like they don't fuck with you too much, you don't fuck with them too much. We're good, we're just gonna live together in this same organism. But once you have some malicious or aggressive kind of bacteria, which is the case that happened with me about like a month ago now, it was making my life difficult. It was giving me a really hard time. What they were doing is that they found home in me, they found a place to live, but they were living so aggressively that they're making my own experience a living hell. So out of love, which is conditional love, the masculine one, what I did is that I just attacked them. I just tried to get rid of them. I got a surgery to get rid of them. And that's still love. What they were doing was also love, but just selfish love, just love for oneself. They weren't caring about my own
Okay.
well-being. You get it? It's
um
like humans when they fucking ruin the planet or something like that. They're ruining their own habitat. So what happens is that backfires on their face. You get it? Because the planet itself loves itself. It doesn't want to get like, I don't know, it doesn't want to get ruined. So if you were to ruin it, it's gonna backfire on you. So it ruins you or kills you. You know? So that's kind of thing. But unconditional love, you're not going to actually see someone, an embodiment of an unconditional love for too long, because this person is going to die. Is no longer caring about whether I survive or Marvin. You want to kill me? Kill me. I'm you. I just killed me. No big deal. I'm not gonna defend this. The show is still gonna go on, but from another
I
perspective.
think it's an issue of identity in a sense, because like, okay, maybe the thing is, what I was trying to point to is that regard, because I think this is an issue with semantics to some degree, like regardless of whether now an enlightened person that you know, kills a tiger is expressing conditional love or not, maybe we put that aside. But my emphasis was on that, uh, as a developed individual, like in spiritual terms, you can, on some level, to some degree, um, love things unconditionally, right? Maybe not fully embodied, but you can love things unconditionally on some level, right? You know, on some level that it's all you love it all
Acceptance.
unconditionally.
Like
But
it's cool, yeah, you be you, but like away from me. That's what you mean, right?
here's
Like
the thing
if you
here's
were
the
to meet
thing
a person that
here,
doesn't have
here
the same
here's the
interest
thing
as
let's
you would
say
just avoid that person. But
let's
you're not gonna go kill him.
here's the weird thing, right? Because the more developed you become, the more you actually experience everything as you,
Okay.
your whole reality. For example, when you were getting sick, right, or you had that issue, right, if you were more conscious, aware, spiritually developed, whatever, you would have been able to heal yourself in a sense, most likely, um, through your relationship to the sickness, right? Because the more you love something, the more you accept something, the more it becomes part of you on some level, and the more you have influence over it in a sense. So when people heal themselves from all kinds of sicknesses or issues or whatever, usually there's a high level of acceptance towards that thing there, right? If they had used some natural healing method, or
Well, acceptance of the like say the infection that I had, there's an acceptance of the situation. Okay, this is what is. I accept this, and I'm aware that this is love. But if I were to truly really love those creatures, I wouldn't kill them. You know, like I can, like you can be you, but just away from me. Just don't give me a hard time. Like if for example there's a person that seems too shallow for you, or not funny, annoying, whatever, having really, like, say for example, strict religious views or something like that, and full on, whenever you meet that person, he goes on criticizing you, trying to convince you of stuff, and you're just like, you're done with this. Like, fine, man, you just believe in what you want. I'm not gonna try to change that about you, but just stay away from me. Just there's a saying in Egypt that goes like, it's more poetic in Arabic, but it goes like this: as long as the fucking is away from my ass, I don't give a shit. But once it's in there, nope, no, don't fuck me, man. I'm not gay or something like
okay,
that.
let me bring up something else. Maybe this will help.
Hmm.
There's this there are these qigong masters, um qigong, like these kind of like tai chi and like these movements and stuff where you
Yeah,
work with energy and how it
yeah,
flows through your body and all of that. There's, for
yeah,
example, a video online, a kind of old one, where a qigong master demonstrates some of his powers in a sense, and it's kind of from a martial arts perspective. So he has like people come at him, right, trying to punch him and kick him and stuff,
yeah,
and he somehow influences the energy, he influences the people, and like when they throw a punch, they get knocked back and stuff like that, right?
yeah,
And so what he explained, because he also had a talk there. Maybe we can link this video in the description. But what he said is that the reason he is able to do this is because when those people come at him and are trying to punch him, he dissolves the barrier between them and him, and he lets his intent stream into the other, in a sense, the other, right? So when that person is punching him, suddenly he loses all desire to punch him, right? And the point is that because you and me, we're fundamentally not different, we're the same. So if I was able to just bam this barrier between you and me, right, we would, like, I would suddenly experience what it is to be you. But because of my level of awareness, like if I was able to do this, likely my level of consciousness is pretty high. So in a sense, it's like I gain more influence and I can impact
Yeah.
my decisions as you. It's very complicated and it gets into this kind of weird metaphysical kind of stuff.
Yeah, no,
But
but it does make sense. But what you're saying, if you were to make the example more threatening than just a master with his students or something like that, and to make it, say, the same master but with a tiger, right? And say that the tiger is really hungry, right? And the tiger has children that he needs to survive for them, to take care of them and protect them and so forth. So then the tiger, what the master is doing is that I don't need to actually harm, physically harm, or like verbally harm the attacker. I can just change their intention or whatever like that, you know, and just like make them not desire punishing me or attacking me anymore. But if it were to be the case with a hungry tiger, what's gonna happen that this tiger is not gonna get fed today because of this. So in a way, it will harm the tiger's state of hunger, and maybe if we were to go to the extreme state, it can harm its own survival, because this guy wanted to protect himself, but at the same time, I didn't want to like actually hit you, but you did still influence him. You can never do anything that doesn't have an effect. There's this Newton law that says every action has an opposite and equal reaction. You can't possibly not have an opposite and equal reaction. Even when I say this, I used to chill with my friends in Egypt, for example, and there was this night, one night where all of us were high and we weren't really talking about stuff. We ran out of talk, and out of nowhere, I started saying every action has an opposite and equal reaction. And I look at them individually, like say it to this person, then say it to that person, and one of them, when I said that to, he was like, no, that's basically the opposite and equal reaction. You know, he reacted to what I said, and if he didn't speak, he nodded or blinked. Or if you try to actually fight it, like I tried this earlier when you were talking, I was just playing with it in my head at the same time focusing on what you're saying. And I tried to, because I was paying attention to my reactions to whatever you do or say, and I try to not blink, not nod, not say, yeah, I get that, or any of these things. But then I noticed an internal twitch in my body. Something is still reacting. I'm holding it in, but it did happen. It did have an effect. So if this guy were to push the enemies away, or like say that you were in the desert and some people just attacked this guy, and he didn't want to harm them, but at the same time he didn't want to get harmed, so he changed their intention of stealing him, or like his, like, I don't know, possessions or a car or whatever
there's
like
a
that.
there's another
They There's an
there's
effect
an
on it, but they
there's
didn't have
another
this, they didn't get the money, they didn't get the food that they needed, and
yeah
so forth.
there's
Right.
another element to this, which is that the idea of um I mean, this is kind of the issue when we have talks like this. We always get deep pretty fast, so it
Yeah.
can kind of shift from the original thing and just go right
Yeah, but
into
like we
certain
also agreed
topics.
that we're gonna set the title of the video in
Right,
stone after we were done, you
right,
know?
right,
So it
right,
can be
right.
really different, and
Because
it will
because
be.
okay, I mean the thing is this is our channel, right? So we can essentially do what we want and we can
Yeah,
go as deep as
exactly.
we want. So, you
Yeah.
know, giving ourselves permission to
If
do
you don't like this, just leave
that.
now.
Just
Yeah.
leave now.
We don't care. Yeah.
Exactly. But
Yeah.
we just do what we like, right? But
Yeah.
so the thing is this, and we kind of go getting to free will again because
Yeah.
the idea is that the tiger has some level of free will and you have some level of free will, meaning
Okay.
that if the tiger is in a situation where he, you know, is about to starve and you know, his children might die if he doesn't eat you or whatever, there's some level of free will in this experience that he has created for himself, right? So if you're now not the tiger, you're the guy that is being attacked and you're aware enough, then you know that this is the case. And you know that it's your free will to choose your creation, right? To choose your experience on some
Yeah.
level. Even this is the funny thing. Um there was something where like a guy asked a Buddhist monk or whatever, like if if you if you were walking past an alleyway or something, and I'm not sure if this is like if this was a Buddhist monk, I don't know, like I don't know the exact origin of this,
Yeah.
but just the sentiment of it is like if the Buddhist monk or whatever was walking past an alleyway and he saw like a guy with a knife or whatever raping a woman, right? Like
Yeah.
what would he do? Would he like walk past it and just fully accept it, or would he like would he like go there and try to help the woman out of love or something, or
Yeah.
would he not interfere, blah blah, right? So what the monk said was that he would he wouldn't get himself into that situation.
Yeah. Yeah.
The point being that
Yeah. Yeah.
he has control over his reality to some degree,
Yeah.
so he doesn't have to end up in that situation, you know, like he doesn't have to create a situation where he has to make that choice. And it doesn't mean that he can't for some reason create that reality and make a choice or whatever. Maybe there's some benefit to that for his evolution or whatever, but the point is that things are not as clear cut, as rigid as we tend to think, because we
Yeah.
grow up and we think that there's an objective reality that is how it is, and you have to kind of adjust to it, right? That's also
Yeah.
where survival, you have trying to kill you, blah blah, right? You adjust to it, but that's a lower consciousness perspective of reality. The higher you go, the more reality becomes malleable, the more you start to mix with your reality and you start to be able to influence your reality.
Yeah.
That's why something like controlling someone punching you and making the punch go away or something like that only becomes possible because that person has to on some level and in a specific way understood that there is no separation between him and this experience, this reality, and the
Yeah.
other people, right?
Yeah.
So like this tiger attacking you and all of that scenario, like the higher consciousness you are, you understand like this experience. Like for example, you could influence the experience in so many different ways through your relationship with it. First of all, you could make it that that experience doesn't even come into your, like that scenario doesn't even come into your experience because of
Well,
the
like
vibration you're holding. But
um
you could also have it that like something happens where then someone interferes and stops the tiger, right? um and like then they help the tiger get back to where food is and or something like that, you know. There's so many
yeah.
things that could happen which change the whole scenario.
I
You
understand,
know what
but
I
like
mean?
if you were really to take this kind of example that you gave of the possibility of how things can go and how can you really influence them and so forth, if you really were to take this as some ultimate thing, some permanent thing, which is like I don't really want to go into free will. We can make this for a separate video because it's really complicated. But if you, this is basically going through that eventually can get to the point where you, the answer to free will is a yes, a definite yes, which in a way that you can always avoid such scenarios, but then there is no growth, you know, there is no discomfort that you went through in a way. Like
But you
what
can
I'm
choose
trying,
discomfort. The
yeah,
point
you
is
can choose
conscious choice.
discomfort, yeah.
That's the point. Conscious
Yes,
choice is the difference.
yes, you can choose discomfort, but like if that master or that person, when he said, I'm not going to let myself be in such scenario, like, well, if you were to be there, whether you decided to, it basically becomes the question of who do you love more, the person, the attacker, or the victim, you know, because the attacker is bad and the victim is poor victim, you know, like
I
just
just
victimized.
it just clicked in me. I just drew a connection. So
Okay.
here's the thing. Creation, um, to me is at least on some level an evolutionary process of consciousness. It's like this cycle of unity, oneness, embodied oneness, unconditional love, all that. Then then separation and like creation and individuation. Um, and and there's an evolutionary process of consciousness going on, right? So humanity is evolving in consciousness, right? So in, I don't know, 200 years or whatever, if we go into that direction, it could also go a different direction, but if we go into that direction, humanity's consciousness and awareness will expand and grow, and will be more, we'll like, the general public will be more like the enlightened person of today or whatever, you know. It will all be more like enlightened people, right? Kind of, that's how one can imagine it. And it goes further and further, but I'm not sure if I want to go into that, like how more expanded consciousness and awareness will look like and how it manifests in creation. Um but the point is that we're in this evolutionary thing. So the thing is, what enlightened people often have, at least who are aware also of these consciousness dynamics, um, is that they try to tune into um, what benefits this, like the world they're in, right? So they try to see what benefits the growth of consciousness. So when the tiger attacks this enlightened person now, there is some level of processing that goes on, which is trying to understand which action is of highest benefit to conscious, the evolution of consciousness, the growth of consciousness,
Yeah.
right? So, for example, if 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 for example the enlightened, because in a sense you can also choose when you die and your death if you are developed enough. So the enlightened person can be like, okay, um my work here is done. I can serve creation and the evolution of consciousness in a different way better than in this body as this person, right? The tiger, because I look at it as the tiger also having a soul that is having an experience, that is learning something from its experience, because everyone is learning from their experience, like be it an ant or be it me or so, like we all consciousness, like nodal points of consciousness that are um, creating experiences, and it kind of grows our awareness and understanding and expands and expands and expands. At some point we're the same thing again, right? And then
Yeah.
again, right? So shit.
I mean, I
um
get what you're saying, but but like
but
without getting so
I didn't
so
I didn't
sidetracked
I
about
didn't
this.
I didn't get to the point though. But like,
Yeah.
so then in that moment, it could be that to serve humanity, for example, or consciousness, the evolution of consciousness, the best, he should remain alive, right?
Okay.
Like he should remain alive and maybe continue teaching humanity or continue
Yeah.
providing his energy to humanity and stuff like that,
Which
right?
is basically the masculine form, because at that point he's gonna, if he were to be put, without getting into free will and all of these things, because in a way, like this video is already getting too long. Like I mean, I know that we didn't really determine, like, set a time limit or anything like
Yeah,
that, but
yeah.
because if we kept on going, which I don't mind, but
We can go
if
on
we kept on
forever.
going, we're gonna go into free will and all sorts of
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah. Exactly.
so let's keep it till like let's end it at love. So in a way, if the enlightened being or master were to be in that scenario where there's an attacker and a victim, and that person were to decide, okay, should I interfere, and thus in a way preventing the attacker from attacking, or
Mhm.
even killing the attacker in the first place and save
Mhm.
the victim, or love the attacker and just move on as if you didn't see anything, because you love both of them unconditionally, you don't really prefer one over the other. If that person were to be like, okay, I'm gonna attack the attacker and save the victim, for example, because this is for the greater good, at that point that's what feels right the most. This
Mhm.
is a masculine form of love, because then you're gonna choose one over the other because this feels right at that moment. Or if that master were to decide to move on and not interfere, this is also a masculine form of love, but it's still conditional in a sense, because it's conditioned upon what he feels. It's not an embodiment of unconditional love, you know? So what happens
I
is that,
but look at it like this. If you're because this is the thing, like I believe that the universe is within everyone. Like the completeness of the universe is within everyone, right? And the more developed you are, the more you connect to this ultimate reality, this ultimate thing, right?
yeah,
So an enlightened person, he's very attuned to the universe and its intent, you could say, right? Of like evolution of consciousness. So when when this happens, right, and he makes a choice, his choice isn't coming from ego. It's coming from a much, 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 much deeper place. It's coming from a much higher place, higher, deeper. I think you
yeah,
get what
yeah,
I mean, right?
yeah,
It's coming from a much more fundamental place. It's coming from God, right? In some
yeah,
sense. Um, but God, what is God? It does love everything unconditionally. But even if you look at God, or if you look at like source, or whatever, it loves everything unconditionally, but it doesn't create unconditionally. You get what I mean? Like the fact that we exist is a testament to unconditional love not equating, like not being the same as being able to express preference. Because like, how should I say,
yeah.
because
That's basically what I'm
creation is
talking about.
contained within everything, right? So if you choose, um if you choose like to kill the tiger, um that choice can come from a place of unconditional love within you, because it's coming from a really high place. You get what I mean? It's coming from like God's will, and it's very like
Look,
dangerous to say this, but
I think that what's causing a little bit of confusion between what we're saying is the words themselves.
yeah.
If I think I understood what you mean. You can still love the tiger and kill it,
Hmm.
but not love it unconditionally. This is the distinction that I'm making. You can still, okay, like you can get a chicken, kill it, cook it, And then before you put it in your mouth, you look at it and you love it so much. I love you so much that I could eat you. And then you eat it. And then it
I,
lives
I,
inside of
I
you.
think
You
the issue
nourish
is
it.
that we don't agree on the definition of unconditional love. I think maybe that's the issue.
Well, the thing is, I agree with you, but I'm making a distinction between the masculine kind of love that you're talking about, the harsh one, which it doesn't have to necessarily be empathetic and all of these things. It can be really radical or extreme or like harsh kind of love, which is basically like, I love the tiger, but I'm still gonna kill it. Maybe I need to kill it, so I'm gonna kill it, and I'm not gonna feel bad about it because, from an existential or metaphysical perspective, there is nothing fundamentally wrong about killing, because
Mm.
it's all just love, just different forms of it. But all those forms all together are conditioned. You wouldn't have killed the chicken unless there's a condition, there's a reason, there's a preference that you want. But what I'm talking about, to distinct that from the
So
extreme, the very, very,
would you say that creation or God or source
yeah,
has conditional love towards
no,
itself?
no, no, not conditional love. I would
That's
say that
that's my point
source, or
because
whatever you want to call it, it loves um, Mother Teresa, for example, as much it loves Hitler.
but
It
can't
loves
you
both
look, but
equally.
here's the thing, this is where we're having an issue, but like I believe you can love the tiger just as much as you can love yourself or you
Yes,
can love the tiger's children, right?
yes,
Unconditionally, meaning if the tiger was different, like you don't care, you love it unconditionally. There's no condition between you loving the tiger or not loving the tiger or whatever, right? But like to me, the action of killing the tiger, not killing the tiger, killing the kids, whatever, it is separate from the unconditional love you can you can have for everything.
well, you
Do you
can,
get what I mean? There's you're
you're
equating
talking about
love
like,
to preference and making a choice, and
you,
but to me it's unconditional love is on a whole different level in and of itself. You know what I mean? Like you can
yeah,
love everything unconditionally but still create and have preference, and you know what I mean?
yeah, but like, it's not really like, look, I understand what you're saying, but what I'm um not agreeing with is when you use the word unconditionally, like all your examples and metaphors and all of that, when you use the word love in it, I'm like, yes, 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 and
Mhm.
I can never not nod to anything. If you say whatever examples you're gonna give me,
Mhm.
whether like really beautiful or really bad, I'm still gonna be like, yes, love, yes, it's love, yes, it's
Mhm.
love.
Mhm.
But then you can love the tiger so much. That's what I think you mean. You can love it so much and you can still kill it,
Yeah, but you
and
can
that's
love
still
it
love.
just as much as yourself, just as much as anything. Be-
If
Like
you really do not,
because love, like me killing the tiger or not killing the tiger, doesn't take away from any love, because conditional love means that if certain conditions are met or not met, the level
yes,
of love decreases.
no, does not, it does not decrease, but then it just changes between unconditional to conditional, from total oneness and total love to self love. So in a way, the tiger, I
No,
can love it
no.
so much and I can take care of its habitant, as long as I'm far away from it and it's not gonna actually, it doesn't like create a threat to my own survival. But once it does, you can still love it, but the masculine kind of love, and kill it for you to survive, and there is nothing wrong with this. But when I say embodiment of unconditional love, it's basically, are you willing to give yourself away for the tiger to live
Mhm.
and survive?
This
Do
is
you love
why,
it that much? Do
but
you love it
this is why I
unconditional?
brought in the example of like the choice being made not from ego but from a different place.
Yeah, you can like,
But this is the thing.
you're talking
Your
about becoming aware of the love in whatever you're doing.
ego is conditional love. Ego is conditional love. Does
Yes,
If you identified with ego, you come from a place of conditional love, and that's what the whole human condition is about,
but
in
if
a
even
sense.
the way you're talking, you still have a sense of self. You wouldn't let a snake bite you because you still have a sense of self
I'm not
enough to
aware,
not die.
but I'm still identified with my ego.
Yeah, but like I'm talking like even those enlightened beings all over the place who are writing books and making videos and so forth, whether like teal swan or like Leo
Teal
or
swan is not
whoever.
enlightened, but yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, like well, enlightened, like it's for it's just very subjective kind of thing. You can't really say I'm enlightened and this person is not, because if I were to say I'm enlightened, people are gonna hate. People would like to label you as enlightened, but you don't get to label yourself as one, you know?
It's a gradient, right?
Yeah,
But
it's like some kind of a spectrum
it's a
kind of thing.
spectrum, right? But still,
They're all enlightened, but the
the
point, how
point
deep are you?
is identification. That's the
Yeah,
point.
yeah,
And you can't, that's the issue. You can't say, like, it's difficult to tell how much, like how someone is identified, right? If I look at you, it's
yeah,
difficult for me to tell what are you identified with, what is
yeah,
your sense and feeling of identity,
yes,
right?
yes,
But the point is that conditional love is a result of of ego identification, meaning that you're
yes,
identified with a very small aspect of yourself. Because if
yes,
when you're identified with a very small aspect of the whole, like this body,
yes,
Marvin, and the ideas and concepts of what Marvin is, then I can look at me as the whole of my of what I am and see things as separate from me, right?
yes,
Outside of me,
yes,
right? And that is, then I can make choices which represent that, which would be conditional
yes,
love in a sense, right?
yes,
But what I'm saying is that when your level of, like, when your identity is on a different
transcendent.
level,
Yes.
transcended from that, your
Hmm.
choices come from a completely different place.
Yes,
And your
yes.
choices don't come from a place of conditional love because they don't come from ego. That is what I was trying to say.
Well, what I'm trying to say to you is that it's gonna always be conditioned love, whether masculine or feminine. It can have all sorts of degrees, and the more aware of it, the more, like, I don't know, wise you are with your decision, or labeled as enlightened towards other people. But like for someone, like, say, I don't know, but like, you're just gonna give this as an example, like someone like Hitler, for example, right? What he was doing is love. Killing the Jews and all of this is love. It's conditional love, you know. He, for himself, this is felt that the right thing to do, and he did it because he thought of it, okay, I'm going to make something commonly known as bad, but it's for the greater good, because that was his vision, that was his preference, that was what he was seeing. So this is conditional. Unconditional love means that no matter how different Marvin becomes, I'm still going to be his friend, and I'm still going to love him the same, and I'm still going to enjoy his company.
You believe that's unconditional love?
In the last thing I just said,
Yeah.
yes, yes, that's an embodiment of
I
it.
don't
It
think
doesn't
that's
matter.
I don't think
Yeah,
that's unconditional love.
well,
Because
it's basically the
what you're
definition of
saying
that.
is, no matter what Marvin does, I will still be his friend.
Yes.
But you're equating being my friend to unconditionally loving me. But you can unconditionally love me no matter if I'm your friend or not your friend. And I think
No.
that kind of gets to the root of the issue,
If you were
because
to
for me,
unconditionally love,
unconditional love is separate. It's separate from any action you can take. You can love the whole world and still kill everyone. you,
but
you,
the action, the thing is,
you can
the
nuke
the
the whole
action,
place.
you can love the whole world. Yes, Hitler in a way was, his
He wasn't
behavior on love.
unconditionally loving to everything.
Yeah, but like that was love. That was love. So
It
he
was
still
some,
loved.
it was some form of love, and
It's just the
the thing
action
is,
itself
because
was love.
I'm not really like arguing with, like, you know, feminine love, masculine love, different kinds of love, right? Conditional love, stuff like that, right? It exists, and right, but the sphere where we are not on the same page is the
Yeah.
idea of unconditional love and what it means.
Well, by
Because
definition, unconditional, that means that whatever the case is, I'm in love with this thing in a way that I can give. I don't have a sense of self, a sense of preferences, likes and dislikes anymore. Eating shit is the same as eating chicken to me. It doesn't matter anymore. They're all the same thing. Getting eaten by a tiger or not getting eaten by a tiger, it doesn't matter. If a tiger were to eat me, I love it so unconditionally that I'm not going to even defend myself against it, because then your sense that that's basically the quote of that master that on the server that you invited me to, when he said, when the student asked his master, how much ego should I have, a sense of self, he said, enough to not get hit by a bus. Because if you cross that limit, it is unconditional love. Now you're totally selfless. You don't have a sense of self. It doesn't matter who lives and who dies. I am everything. I cannot die anyway. It doesn't matter if this avatar fucking goes to, like, turns to ashes, or like a tiger eats on it. I am the tiger. I am eating myself. I am the attacker and I am the victim. It doesn't matter if I kill the attacker or kill the victim. It doesn't matter. I live anyway. You know, if an attacker attacks me, I just let him attack me. I am the attacker. I am attacking myself. So there is
no,
no
because
sense of self
no,
anymore.
because
So
if
the
you
character keeps
no
on
no no
dying.
no because if you let the tiger kill you, it's,
Yes,
you're saying that would be unconditional love.
yes.
But you're coming from a place of ego when you say that, because because that would still have to mean an identification with the one who's being eaten. Do you understand? You have the tiger, you have the one who could get eaten. You're saying the one who could get eaten, if he's unconditionally loving, he might let himself get eaten, right?
Yes,
But there's, these are the same. These are the same.
yes,
So if this one eats this one,
yes,
right,
yes.
then it's still a choice. There's a choice being made above. There's a choice being made of this
Okay.
one eating this one,
Mm.
right? But then there's no difference between this one killing this one or this one eating this one. So who's making that choice? Who's above it?
Yeah, but
Do you
like
understand? And how does it make that choice? If above it is God that is unconditionally loving,
yes,
right? Unconditionally
yes.
loving, right?
Well, it's not above it. It is the tiger and the
It
person.
encompasses it,
It
right?
is the
But
tiger and the person simultaneously.
right, but
It loves both unconditionally.
but
So if
the
this thing with
choice,
this, it's not gonna
of
prefer.
the choice of who eats who kills who,
Yeah,
it has to come from a place that is of unconditional love, because it's coming from something above. It's not coming from this one, it's not coming from this one, it's coming from a higher place.
well, the thing is, you're still talking as there's a third person. There is no third. The third person is the tiger and the man. And then the tiger, if a tiger is hungry and wants to attack the man, if the third person embodiment in the man, representation of the man, had reached a point of true enlightenment or full awakening, where it realized that it is both the tiger and the man simultaneously, it's not going to defend itself. It's not going to matter to it.
No,
It
no, no.
can.
It will matter. It will matter. It will matter, because this whole creation matters. What happens matters. There's 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 um there's a narrative in place, right? Like, why do we have creation? Why do we have universes? We have planets, we have wars, we have this, we have that, we have that. There's narratives in place. There's
Okay.
things happening, right? So it's so difficult to explain this, but who eats who has to do with a higher narrative, right? And it has to do with higher aspects of consciousness creating things, right? So the point is, when this person is aware enough of his true self, like the enlightened person, he will tune into the higher narratives in play, right? Whereas the tiger is not aware enough to tune into the higher narratives in play. So his conscious mind is not attuned to what's going on. Whereas with the enlightened person, his conscious mind could be attuned to what's going on. So because he's attuned to what's going on, his choices can more closely represent the will, quote unquote, the will of the higher narratives of the creator, God, whatever, in play. Whereas the tiger will be coming from a much more egocentric point of view and making choices from an egocentric point of view, right? So the choice he makes, like whether he lets himself get eaten or not, does not depend on whether he knows that the tiger is himself or not. That's not what will make him make that choice. It will depend on his overall awareness of the narratives in place, and how him getting eaten or not getting eaten will serve those narratives, will serve the creation, overall creation that is being created, right?
Yeah.
Like the universe wants to create, like it wants to create an earth where all enlightened people are dead, right?
But
Because it's serving some kind of narrative. The enlightened person will tune into that and will be like, ah, okay, I see, right? He will let
what
himself
I'm
get
saying
eaten
is
or
that
not get. You get
the
what I mean?
overall narrative that you're talking about is going to depend on the level or the depth of awakening that this man had. If it's going to change according to, like, you, like after your first awakening, even if it's slightly for a second, everything is still the same. Nothing really has changed. You still here, there are still things everywhere, there's still people, and you still have to pay your bills and so forth. But the way you perceive them, the way you perceive all of the external is not the same anymore. So the way you're gonna see things depends on the internal. They come and go together. So if the internal will to the depth of the awakening is, or the like depth or heightened the awakening is, the more the different that this overall perception is going to be. So if it were to be completely entirely permanent, ego death or selflessness, then it's not going to matter anymore if I die or not. There is no fear, there is no fear of death, there is no sense, there is no that survival instinct, it dies with it. And that's why they when they
You
teach enlightening and how to get there and all of this, they tell them enough not to get hit by a bus
you
so
you're
you can
you're coming
experience.
you're coming from a paradigm of survival being the 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 mode of action taking. This is the difference between my perspective and your perspective, is that I'm coming from, like, my fundamental paradigm for why actions are taken and why things happen and how creation plays out is a different one than yours, because yours is coming more from a place of survival. And it's a very different paradigm to look at reality from, and why certain things are creations and actions are taken. Because for me, when I look at if this person gets eaten or not, when we're looking at an enlightened person, the matter of survival in and of itself is irrelevant. It doesn't matter, because survival is guaranteed. You're always alive, you always exist, right? So the choice of whether to get eaten by the tiger or not has nothing to do with survival as an existential thing anymore. There's no
Mm,
ego that wants to survive there. Like there's no
mm,
body that wants to survive there. It doesn't matter. There's a deeper paradigm of action taking that is being accessed than survival. The paradigm of survival is has to be operated from an ego level.
mm.
So
Like
yeah,
I get what you
but
mean.
I think the
With
thing
that
is, I
person,
think we're going in circles in some way,
yeah, yeah,
because
yeah.
there's some fundamental paradigms, like different paradigms, where we're coming from, and it's very difficult to explain these two paradigms,
Yeah.
like to communicate them, and it
But
will
I
probably
see
take
what
more time, you know.
you mean. Do you see mine?
to some degree, I do. Um,
Mm.
I think
It doesn't
to
necessarily have to agree, but
yeah.
see it.
Um, Again, to some degree, I do, but there's aspects of it which like stuff like unconditional love. To me, your perception of unconditional love to me is kind of elusive because my concept of unconditional love is very different.
Mm.
But again, I think that we won't get to a point in this discussion where we can fully understand each other's perspectives, like
Yeah,
our
yeah,
paradigms, you know.
yeah,
But I still think that we got to a very interesting place
yeah,
with this.
yeah. We did. Yeah,
It got to a very deep place, and
it got juicy. Yeah,
I think that many people will not be able to relate to this at
yeah,
all.
yeah.
um,
Probably like no one would be watching at this point, but that's fine too. It was still fun talking to you as usual. You know,
mm,
we probably should like just stop here. It's also getting dark in here,
mm.
and I'm hungry as well. So
I
I
also
gotta
haven't eaten.
survive. You know.
You gotta survive, man.
Yeah, I need to survive, right?
Yeah,
So yeah, I guess we'll stop here and maybe I don't know. Like we don't really have to decide what kind of topic we're gonna talk. Like we don't have to set in a stone, but it will probably like involve like free will or some sorts of that, you know. And it's just gonna go from there, kind
yeah.
of thing.
Um,
Yeah,
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 let me maybe if for everyone who watched this far,
yeah,
congratulations or hey buddy,
yeah,
like I
yeah,
don't know. But yeah, we didn't mention too much about ourselves. Like you mentioned, we're in the same like we are friends and we're in like the same Discord channels, like some of the same Discord channels and stuff.
yeah,
And you know, we're just making this channel together for now because we felt
yeah,
like it.
yeah,
Um, and if the people who are still watching this, if anyone is,
yeah,
have any topics that they are interested in and that they think we maybe have something to say about, I mean, I'm into metaphysics, I'm into relationship dynamics, personal development. I have high emotional intelligence, so I can help people with like things of like how to relate to other people,
yeah,
how to relate to yourself and stuff like that, right?
yeah,
So if there's any topics in those directions that people are interested in, maybe
yeah,
we could talk about it, you know.
yeah,
And they can
yeah,
like write what you know, people generally, if they've watched this far, they can write what they think about this and just speak
yeah.
their mind and whatever. But yeah,
Okay, yeah.
apart from
But
that,
pretty much we talked like just as a summary we started with sharing as like the key idea which triggered this whole thing, and then we went to creation and then to love, the two types of it, the conditional and unconditional, and the two types of conditional love. I think that was pretty much like a pretty decent talk, you know. Like we
yeah.
covered a lot of things. I don't know exactly how long we've been doing this, but long
We
enough that I
started
can handle.
at like 15:15,
Yeah,
I think, and now it's like 17:10, so we've been at it for about 2 hours maybe.
about that, yeah, maybe,
Yeah.
yeah. But yeah.
And yeah,
Mm,
we're gonna upload it and see.
yeah. Yeah. All right then.
All right, then have a nice one.
All right. Okay, I'll talk to you later.
Yep.